All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into game one of this best of three set. Tom running with Smeargle, Xerneas, Salamence, Cresselia, Bronzong, and Groudon. So this is interesting. He's got a lot of elements of the team that's been known as Big Six or Big B. Usually there's a Kangaskhan on here and one of Cresselia or Bronzong, but Tom's elected to use both of them, probably just picking his Trick Room setter, as that's the most likely use that either of those two mons have, depending on his matchup. So this team has been really solid all season. It just has a lot of options. With Smeargle and Xerneas, you just have a lot of offensive pressure right away, and it's not safe to ignore either of those two Pokemon, because if Smeargle starts sleeping you with Dark Voids, then that's going to let Xerneas set up and sweep really easily. However, if you target down the Smeargle instead of the Xerneas, you're about to take a whole lot of damage from those, either by letting it boost up or just if it goes straight on the offensive right away. Then we're going to go ahead and go straight into battle. So we're going to see what these two trainers chose to lead as their Pokemon to start this set. All right, so both players opting to select their Smeargle as well as a Mega. So the Salamence is going to go ahead and intimidate the Kangaskhan right away, dropping its attack just a little bit. That's going to give Salamence a bit more survivability, and actually it's possible for Smeargle to survive a Kangaskhan hit after Intimidate as well. So it's going to come down to Salamence is going to be faster than Kangaskhan, and the two Smeargles are probably a speed tie, so we'll have to see where those roles go. One thing to note that has been popular lately is that Smeargles have been carrying Crafty Shield in order to block opposing Smeargles from firing off Dark Voids. So it'll be interesting to see if either player opts to go for that move. Now, Matt Carter does have Fake Out Pressure here, which can really give him a lot of momentum, especially if he's able to fire off a Dark Void or something, to just go ahead and sleep both of these Pokemon for free. Alright, so Tom goes ahead and he just goes for a double protect. Going to burn out that Fake Out, not playing any games. And we see Spore coming out from the Smeargle, which is interesting. Normally they go for Dark Void to be able to hit both Pokemon, but Spore does allow for 100% accuracy. That way Matt doesn't have to worry about the 20% chance to miss. And we did see that Tom's Smeargle is moody while Matt's is not. So maybe some moody boost could come in. Smeargle did get a accuracy boost, which is going to be very helpful for it if it does have Dark Void, which previously I would say every Smeargle does, but it's looking like Matthew's Smeargle is lacking the Dark Void. So we'll see what happens. Could still be a speed tie here, which could spell trouble for either one of these players. Kangaskhan has burned the Fake Out, and you'll also notice that both players have not Mega Evolved. Looks like they're trying to preserve their regular abilities. Kangaskhan especially has been running Inner Focus, and so sometimes on the first turn they choose to not Mega Evolve to preserve Inner Focus, to not be flinched when they go for the Fake Out. It helps in the mirror a little bit. And obviously, Salamence with that Intimidate ability, it gives Tom the chance to fire off second Intimidate if he were to switch out. And the Smeargle actually goes before the Salamence, so we see that it is scarfed, and Double Edge goes right into that Smeargle, knocking it out in one hit. And Salamence is going to take some recoil. With Kangaskhan also going for a Double Edge, into the Smeargle. So it looks like both Smeargles are off the field. So we probably won't be seeing much more sleep in this battle. Now, the Salamence right now is faster than Kangaskhan, as well as not having been dropped with its attack. So a Groudon comes out, and Groudon can do a lot of damage with either its massive attack or special attack. Both are really high, and it can deal a lot of damage. Um, and we see Talonflame for Matt's side of the field, and with that Gale Wing's ability, it's going to have priority flying type attacks, so it could get the jump on the Salamence with a Brave Bird, or it could set a Tailwind and give Matt some much needed speed advantage here for the later turns. The problem is, since we've seen Fake Out, sometimes Kangaskhan's do rock both Fake Out and Protect, but alright, so Matt's Kangaskhan is not going for the Protect. And we see a double Tailwind, so it's a net 0 gain for both players. That's probably a good play for both of them to make, though, because if you don't make the Tailwind play, you can be playing at an advantage. And Salamence holds on with just a sliver of health, which is going to be really useful. It's going to hang on for one more turn, forcing Matt to target the Salamence with at least one attack. It's probably the Groudon in the back. Yeah, so here comes Groudon, and it's going to be interesting to see these two Pokemon's speeds. The Precipice Blades is usually not enough to one-hit KO a Groudon, especially when it's spread damage, because when you have more than one target, damage is reduced by 75%. However, if either of these players are running a specially based Groudon, the Earth Power can get the one-hit KO, depending on how the Groudons are trained, if they're very defensive. And then again, there's the issue of how fast each of these Groudons are. So currently, Tom is at a one Pokemon advantage, but the Brave Bird, probably targeting that Salamence, is going to go ahead and KO it. And so this is still anyone's game at this point. We're going to have to see which Groudon gets to move first here. That's going to be big. And the Precipice Blades coming out from Tom's Groudon probably won't get the KO on Matt's Groudon unless it gets a critical hit, and it doesn't. And the Earth Power does come out from Tom's Groudon from Matt's Groudon, but Tom's is trained defensively enough to survive that. But with the Bronzong coming out here, it looks like he was maybe hoping to have a Trick Room advantage. So it's also possible that these two Groudons actually have the same speed. If he's using a Trick Room variant for Groudon. The Talonflame is likely going to pick up the KO on Groudon this turn, which means it's going to be Bronzong versus the world, and it's not a fun day to be Bronzong if you're facing down two fire types in the sun. But you never know. Bronzong's rather slow, so it could at least fire off some Gyro Balls that'll have a high base damage against either of these two Pokemon, and perhaps whittle them down if it has the Heat-Proof ability and isn't taking Fire-type attacks. But if it does have Heat-Proof, then that leaves it vulnerable to Groudon's Ground-type attacks. So it's a tough out here, and I feel like Tom's definitely going to be playing this game to get as much information as he can going into the next game of this set. And there we go, the Talonflame going ahead and Brave Birding into Groudon, picking up just that last bit of HP to go ahead and knock out the Groudon. And let's see what Matt elects to do with his Groudon. Honestly, he could be going for some information as well, because if this doesn't KO, then he knows it's a Heat-Proof Bronzong. And Bronzong goes for a Gyro Ball. And it does, what was that, like 4 damage, not nearly enough damage to Groudon. And it gives away that that's definitely a Heat-Proof Bronzong. No Bronzong without Heat-Proof, reducing the damage of Fire-type attacks to, is going to take a Overheat in the sun. So that's some good information that Matt gained that game. But also Tom, knowing that his Groudon is possibly faster than the opposing Groudon, and that he can survive an Earth Power. Finding out that it's a more specially based Groudon is really good to know going into this next match. He's not as worried about intimidating it, because that's not going to reduce its damage nearly as much. So it will be interesting, since Tom's only Mega option is Salamence, which has Intimidate, that I'm a little surprised that we didn't see Bisharp coming out from Matthew that game, as that really counters that Intimidate ability by letting, with Defiant, giving Bisharp a +2 every time its stats are raised for a net total of or every time its stats are lowered for a net gain of 1 attack stat every time it gets intimidated, especially since it's going to be strong against both Cresselia or Bronzong, firing off super effective dark type attacks at them, as well as being able to hit Xerneas for super effective damage. So maybe he just felt comfortable with the other Mons in his team, or he didn't like the matchup that Bisharp has against opposing Groudons. And it's a hard sell to not bring Groudon to any one of your games. It's such a dominating Pokemon and has been all format. So that could be why we didn't see Bisharp. Obviously, he didn't need it to wrap up Game 1. So let's go ahead and see which leads these two elect to go with this turn, or this game. See if Tom's trying to switch it up a bit to gain the upper hand early on, or if they're going to just go with the same and try and outplay the opponent. So Matt feels confident with his leads from earlier. He's like, yeah, I won Game 1. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Tom, however, goes ahead and brings out Bronzong instead of Salamence on the first turn. A little risky, again, leading Salamence and a Dark Weak Pokemon, in case that Bisharp came out, but obviously working out right here. And the Intimidate is really, really important against Kangaskhan, slowing down its damage. And that can help both of Tom's restricted Pokemon last on the field for a lot longer, which is really good, lets him get some more damage. So this game, Salamence goes for the Mega Evolution right away, not trying to preserve Intimidate. So we'll have to see what he's going for. He does know that Tom's Smeargle is a Choice Scarf variant, so he knows that it's faster than his Salamence. And that's interesting that Matthew has both Spore and Dark Void. So rather than going for the Spore and potentially sporing into a Protect or something, he went ahead and just Dark Voided and was like, you know what, I'll take the 80% chance to hit either one of these rather than a 50% chance that I Spore the thing that protects. And so by faking out Bronzong, he gains an advantage there, because Bronzong with the Lumberry would have been able to set up Trick Room or Gyro Ball into the Smeargle, both of which would have been good things for Tom, although setting Trick Room for Salamence, with 120 base speed might not be the best plan. So I imagine he was probably going for a Gyro Ball. So that was just a good safe play by Matt to go ahead and fake out the Bronzong, not letting it do anything that turn, even if it had the Lumberry. And so Dark Void here connects with both Pokemon, putting them both to sleep. They're both going to take at least one turn of sleep here, which means Kangaskhan is free to just deal damage this turn. And the Double Edge into Salamence looks like, one more of those is going to be enough to KO the Salamence, which really puts Tom in a tough spot. He definitely needs to get this Wake Up on the first turn in order to have a chance. Or, well, not in order to have a chance, obviously. He's got 2 more Pokemon in the back. But in order to preserve Salamence for later in the game, he needs to get this 1-turn Wake Up. But he's still got to deal with Kangaskhan somehow, because a Double Edge is probably not going to be enough to KO the Kangaskhan. And it's not surprising to see Smeargle switch out there, given that both opposing Pokemon are asleep already, and so that gives Matt a chance to gain some momentum. The Double Edge into Salamence, picking up the KO. We'll have to see if Bronzong continues sleeping this turn or if it wakes up and gets to do anything. And it does take another turn of sleep, so we're going to have to see what Tom brings in, because obviously what he brings in will be awake this turn and be able to do some damage at least. So he goes ahead and brings in Groudon, which is going to be good since both of these Pokemon are physical attackers. With Groudon's massive physical defense, it's going to be able to take those hits quite well. It does, however, bring out the Sun, which is going to boost any of Talonflame's attacks, or Fire-type attacks, which it may be carrying. All we saw were Tailwind and Brave Bird earlier, which is going to deal more damage to Bronzong. And it does go for the Flare Blitz right into Bronzong. Probably not going to pick up a KO. Yep, Bronzong holds on with just a little bit of HP. I'm not surprised that Matt didn't want to go for the Tailwind there, because setting up Tailwind in front of a Bronzong who probably just wants to set Trick Room, would have been very counterproductive. And unfortunately, Talonflame holds on there with just a sliver of HP as well, which is going to spell trouble, because now is the time to set Tailwind before going down, which is going to put his team faster, even if Xerneas does manage to pick up a boost. The Talonflame will go down to any recoil if it chooses to attack, although it might want to go ahead and attack that Xerneas, because perhaps a combination of Kangaskhan and Talonflame attacking it would be enough to KO it, and then Tom can just target down the Groudon, or Matt can target down the Groudon, rather. So we could see Tom trying to make that read, protecting his Xerneas to get damage off with Groudon, but he doesn't. It looks like he's going just for damage, so obviously that Sun-boosted Flare Blitz is going to do a ton of damage. Oh, it doesn't pick up the one-hit KO? It doesn't look like it. It looks like Xerneas has just a little bit. But if Kangaskhan also targets the Xerneas, it's not going to matter that it gets this boost here. But I do not recall if Groudon was faster than Xerneas or not. And it's not. The double edge going into the Xerneas as well, picking up that KO there. So now Groudon's probably going for an attack. Probably enough to KO Kangaskhan. I'm really not sure on the damage rolls here. Just not quite enough there. Kangaskhan with 5 HP, holding on. And so now with only one Pokemon on the opposing side of the field, there is no disadvantage to going for the Spore rather than the Dark Void, making sure that you connect with the Spore. And now actually is a really good time for Kangaskhan to just go ahead. Well, he goes for the low kick, which makes sense. Not letting your Kangaskhan get KO'd for nothing. I think maybe going for a double edge and letting Kangaskhan go down to recoil so you could bring in your Groudon might have been a little bit of a better play, just so you're not risking Groudon waking up and getting the Precipice Blades double KO on these Pokemon, but it also does depend on what Matthew has in the back. It's interesting that he goes for the Fire Punch. Maybe, I'm not sure why he didn't go for a Precipice Blades there, probably just not wanting to mess around with the accuracy, because he is going to have to both survive this turn. He probably needs a critical hit from his Groudon onto Matthew's Groudon in order to have a chance, but he certainly does have a chance, especially if his Groudon is in fact faster than Matthew's Groudon, which did move first last game. So now Matt definitely does not want to double edge here, because then that would give Tom's Groudon single target damage against his own Groudon, which would be really bad. So going for that low kick there, it's probably not going to be enough to KO. And now it's all a matter of if this Precipice Blades connects with both, and it's going to have to be a critical hit on Matthew's Groudon, which it is not. So assuming it's a critical hit on Kangaskhan, so that's some tough luck there, getting it on the wrong mon. The critical hit with 5 HP left. and the Earth Power comes out and gets the KO. So that was an excellently played match by both players. That Scarf Smeargle really getting the jump on things and kind of shutting down threats before they had a chance to do anything really gave Matthew a huge advantage in that game. So for sure be seeing Matt play in Top Cut. I imagine Tom will be making it as well since he's only taken one loss for the day. But we'll have to see how the rest of the tables panned out.